Tonight, the U.S. House of Representatives is still without a speaker.
Jim Jordan is in the race to replace the ousted Kevin McCarthy, but lost his first vote.
CBS 2's Skylar Henry following that race for Speaker live from Capitol Hill. And Skylar, it looked like Jordan was building some support. So what are you hearing happened when it came down to the vote?
Hey, Marie and Jim, good to be with you. I just want to report out some fresh new reporting here. It looks as if there will be another round of votes tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. So that is certainly news. There was some anticipation as to seeing when we could potentially see another House vote. Some thought that we could potentially see that later on this evening. But to answer your question, Marie, ultimately, while Jordan was working through the weekend to try to sway some of those who were signaling that they were going to be voting against him when this first round of voting actually happened, several of them sort of stood their ground, dug their feet in the sand, if you will, and ultimately said that they do not want him to represent them as House Speaker. Now, the interesting part of that is Steve Scalise, who was previously nominated to represent Republicans as the leader of the House. He voted with Jordan. Now there's a bit of a back and forth as some of those who have been walking with in lockstep with Scalise now say that they will not be voting for Jordan. So the big question now is what he will be able to do to try to flip those 20 Republicans who voted against him in that first go round, ultimately seeing if he loses votes or if he's actually able to gain some. Remember, 217 votes is the number needed in order to move forward and earn the gavel, but Jordan certainly has an uphill battle in terms of trying to make that happen.
So, Skylar, with this vote coming then tomorrow morning, do you expect what could be possibly a late night of more conversations and discussions?
Yeah, I think so. There are some who simply say that they will not vote for Jim Jordan. And remember, he can only afford to lose 4 votes given the slim majority that Republicans have in the House of Representatives. Now, there are some Republicans who were swayed since we saw that House vote, that first go around, but there are others who simply voted present, so they will have to be swayed as well. And I think the other big thing to point out and pay attention to here as this process happens is that nothing can essentially happen in Congress until they name that new House Speaker. That means no funding for Israel or Ukraine. That means that there is no momentum in terms of looking to find common ground on long-term spending solutions to keep the government open, because Jim and Marie, in about 30 days, the government runs out of money. Remember, we are still very much on this continuing resolution, so a lot of work needs to be done, and these lawmakers are simply running out of time. So yes, tomorrow morning, looks like another vote will happen. We'll see if Jordan earns enough to become the next speaker.
So much at stake, still up in the air. Thanks so much, Skylar. Skylar is in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. Thank you.